At the wedding, Ethan's childhood sweetheart Sophia asked Ethan, "If I interrupt the wedding with a declaration, will you marry me?" Ethan firmly replied, "I do." In the dead silence that fell over the entire venue, Ethan finally realized what he'd done and quickly explained to me, "Audrey, I was just joking, don't take it seriously." I smiled and replied, "Oh, don't worry about it. I was just about to wish you both a lifetime of happiness and prosperity." As my words fell, the entire room instantly fell silent. All eyes were on me at that moment. There was surprise and disbelief, but mostly, there was schadenfreude. Everyone knew Ethan was my entire world. They thought I wouldn't dare make a scene. They probably thought I was just putting on a brave face, trying to salvage a shred of dignity. But Ethan, standing beside me, changed his expression, ignored those trying to stop him, and forcefully threw a drink in my face. "Audrey, are you out of your mind? I told you, it was just a joke. On such a joyous day, who are you trying to disgust by saying something like that? I truly regret agreeing to marry you. After all these years, you're still a petty and small-minded woman." The drink dripped from my forehead, down my hair, leaving me looking like a drenched dog. Ethan was spoiled rotten by me. Spoiled to the point of being lawless. Whenever he was in a bad mood, no matter the occasion, no matter if others were present or not, he would hit or curse at me as he pleased. He trampled my dignity underfoot. Perhaps this time, he was so brazen because he thought I would meekly admit my fault, just like before. Seeing me so disheveled, he showed no panic. Instead, he lifted his chin, waiting arrogantly for me to apologize to him. Honestly, to have a relationship turn out like this, it truly was humiliating to admit. I picked up a nearby napkin, wiped the drink from my forehead, and spoke without a trace of emotion. "You two are quite devoted to each other, a perfect match, willing to stage such a melodramatic scene at a wedding for love. If I were to break you apart, wouldn't I be the villain who tears lovers apart? Perfect. Consider this wedding reception my blessing to you both. I wish you grow old together." I picked up my drink and raised it to Sophia. "Sophia, congratulations. You finally got what you wished for." No one expected me to say something like that, including Sophia herself. Her original intention was probably just to thoroughly annoy me on my big day. But she never imagined she'd be the one put on the spot. "Audrey, what are you talking about? Ethan and I have never been anything more than just good friends. If you can't take a joke, then I apologize, isn't that enough?" Ethan couldn't bear to see his childhood sweetheart put in such an awkward position in front of me. He shielded Sophia like a protective hawk, glaring at me fiercely. That profound disgust made my heart sting slightly, as if I were some heinous criminal. "You ruined a perfectly good wedding like this, are you satisfied? Apologize to me right now, or I swear, I'll never marry you." Looking at his face, flushed with anger, my heart felt a chill. Who was it that ruined everything? After all these years, were all my efforts for him worth less than a few words from his so-called childhood sweetheart? My fiancé was about to run off with another woman, and I was supposed to act magnanimous, pretend nothing happened. Seeing him about to speak again, I cut him off directly. "No need. Since you two are so devoted, I'll just be the one to step aside." With that, I grabbed my jacket and car keys and walked straight out. Perhaps he didn't expect me to show him no respect, because Ethan completely exploded, raging behind me. "Audrey, if you dare walk out that door today, I'll divorce you." I paused, and Ethan, thinking I was scared, immediately looked smug. "Scared? If you're scared, then crawl back here and kneel before Sophia, admit your mistake." But I just turned around, a sarcastic smile on my face. "Fine. I'll see you at divorce office. Whoever doesn't show up is a coward." With that, I slipped off my engagement ring, placed it casually on a nearby waitress's tray, and walked straight out. Although I loved Ethan very much, I wasn't the kind of woman who would just tolerate being cheated on. For these two to say such things in front of all our relatives and friends, they might as well have admitted they were cheating. And I was supposed to smile and play along? Perhaps my love for Ethan had become so twisted that it allowed him to be so unrestrained. If that was the case, I might as well let go completely. My wedding with Ethan was interrupted, and along with it, my 5-year relationship with him came to an end. Ethan's parents, perhaps out of propriety, brought some gifts and came to our house, wanting to plead their case, but my parents angrily drove them out. I didn't see them. I just stayed in my room, deleting photos of Ethan and me, one by one. Was I heartbroken? Of course. I had known for a long time that the person Ethan truly loved wasn't me. It was Sophia. But for the past 7 years, I thought I could melt Ethan's heart with my love, making Sophia just a fleeting episode. But at the wedding, Sophia appeared, still as beautiful and striking as ever. Ethan's explanation was that she was a special guest for the day, specifically invited to give us her blessings. But I never imagined the blessing would be like that. Ding dong, my phone chimed with a message notification. It was my debit card, just charged 30,000. I didn't need to think, I knew Ethan was retaliating against me. His debit card was linked to my account. This was his usual habit. Whenever he was in a bad mood, he'd go on a spending spree with my money. The worst time, he spent nearly 200,000 in just one night. But when I questioned him, Ethan acted as if it were perfectly reasonable. Everyone thought I was high doormat, including he himself. Wasn't it only natural for a doormat to spend a little extra money on her ideal man? In the past, I probably wouldn't have pursued it. But now, I'd had enough of being this sucker. He wanted to cheat with his childhood sweetheart and spend my money too. Where in the world was there such a good deal? Without a moment's hesitation, I called the bank directly and froze his account. Less than half a minute after I hung up the phone, Ethan started to verbally attack me. Audrey, are you serious about this relationship? It's just a bit of your lousy money, and you actually froze my card? Restore it immediately. I'm waiting to check out. Just as I was about to speak, I heard Sophia's voice from the other end of the line. She's not even willing to pay this little bit? Tisk. It suddenly dawned on me. No wonder he spent so much money in just a few minutes. He was using my money to impress her. Please note, you are not my husband, nor my lover. My money, by any measure, should not be used by you. Since she loves you so much, she'll surely pay for you, right? Perhaps he didn't expect me to humiliate him, because after a few seconds of freezing, Ethan chastised me in a low voice. Why are you so petty? Sophia was right, you are a petty and small-minded woman. It's all Sophia with him. He seemed to have forgotten who had doted on him like a young master all these years, who allowed him to endlessly indulge his vanity. But in front of his childhood sweetheart, every single fault, every mistake, became mine. After so many years of selfless dedication, even a dog would wag its tail at me. But the truth is, someone who doesn't love you simply doesn't love you. I hung up the phone directly and turned to immerse myself in work. No matter how humiliating the wedding had been, life had to go on. I thought this matter would fade with time, but I had underestimated the shamelessness of these two. 3 days after the wedding, I received a message from a friend. Audrey, quickly, check out Ethan's social media post. My friend's tone was indignant, which made me curious. It wasn't until I clicked on Ethan's profile that I understood why she was angry. It was a photo of Ethan and Sophia embracing, accompanied by a caption. Love conquers all difficulties in the world. On their hands, each wore a dazzling diamond ring. I thought, I knew where those 30,000 had gone. More importantly, the background of the photo was clearly a hotel bathroom. And what Ethan was wearing was clearly a bathrobe provided by the hotel. It even had the hotel's logo on the chest. Seeing the clear hickey on Ethan's neck, I was somewhat shocked. The shamelessness of these two truly exceeded my imagination. 3 days ago, Ethan was still hosting guests at our wedding. 3 days later, he was in a hotel engaging in intimate acts with another woman. The speed of it was simply astounding. Although I had already given up on that man in my heart, seeing this scene truly made me feel a pang of sadness. That was the man I had loved for 5 years. We had shared good times. Back then, he was handsome, intelligent, and a prominent figure at school. And apart from my relatively good family background, I was no different from the other silent admirers who watched him. Sophia was from the same school as us. Unlike me, she was very talented and strikingly beautiful, making her the secret crush of many boys. Because of this, they were the school's recognized golden couple. Whenever they appeared, they were, without exception, the most dazzling sight. At the time, though I felt regret, I never dared to dream of being with a heartthrob like Ethan. Just being able to watch him from afar made me happy. If nothing unexpected happened, he would ultimately be a lingering regret from my innocent school days. But then, unexpectedly, something did happen. Not long after graduation, Ethan's family business failed, causing him to fall grace overnight. He even had to live off loans for a time. Sophia's family wasn't bad either, so her parents absolutely refused to let her marry a man burdened by debt. The two parted ways then. One night, I received a call from Ethan. On the other end of the line, he was crying heartbrokenly. Ignoring my work, I rushed to his house that very night to listen to him pour out his grievances from that period. Later, he willingly stripped naked and climbed into my arms, expressing his desire to give himself to me. The condition was that I had to provide a sum of money to help his family overcome their difficulties. The heartthrob from my youth actively sought my affection. Of course, I couldn't refuse. Even though this relationship wasn't pure, but I still loved him desperately. Therefore, throughout our relationship, I would agree to almost all his requests. That impure relationship, through my persistent efforts day after day, slowly became pure. I thought everything was about to get back on track, but Sophia suddenly returned from overseas. I learned from Ethan that Sophia's parents had an accident while traveling overseas and tragically passed away. Thus, the last obstacle preventing them from being together was gone. It proved that the moment they reunited, it was like wildfire spreading. Unstoppable. Still, I was unwilling to accept it. Was Ethan really that impatient? In his heart, were our 5 years together so insignificant? Filled with such doubts, I commented below that photo. Using my spouse's money to please the other woman, where's your conscience? But soon, my comment was deleted. At the same time, Ethan sent me a message, every word dripping with sarcasm and disdain. It's your honor to have your money used. And let me tell you, Sophia is my spouse, you're just a doormat. Dreaming of taking her place? Dream on. Oh, and I forgot to tell you something else. The money for our hotel room also came from your card. I silently put down my phone, my fin. Gertups turning white from clenching them so hard. I didn't know how cold Ethan's heart had to be to say such words. I could even imagine how they were mocking me on the other side of the screen as they said this. I should have understood long ago that this relationship was utterly rotten. It was just that I myself was unwilling to let go. After a long silence, I replied, I wish you happiness. Then I deleted his contact and blocked him. Driving home, I intended to pack my bags and move out, but the scene before me as I pushed open the door immediately made me uneasy. On the sofa, Ethan and Sophia were laughing and cuddling. The sofa was clearly large enough, yet they insisted on squeezing together. Every now and then, they were feeding each other snacks. Their sweet demeanor made it seem as if they were the true owners of the house. I was so furious I almost couldn't breathe. I rushed forward and kicked the snacks off the coffee table. Ethan, there's a limit to your shamelessness. I don't care what you do outside, but you can't bring it into my home. Ethan, however, was emboldened. Why are you so petty? Sophia hasn't been back in the country for a long time and isn't familiar with anything. What's wrong with letting her stay at home for a few days? Can you stop being so disgusting? We have a purely platonic friendship. I laughed, exasperated. I'm disgusting? You go to a hotel room without even trying to hide it, and you call that a purely platonic friendship? A friendship in bed? I couldn't be bothered to argue with him about this. Since you're back, let's be clear. Although I bought this house, if you want it so badly, I'll leave it to you. Honestly, I find it dirty now anyway. Let's find a time to get our divorce papers filed. Then you can freely pursue your true love, and we'll have nothing to do with each other ever again. Having said that, I prepared to leave. Ethan panicked. He still thought I was the doormat he could manipulate, believing a few words would be enough to smooth things over. But seeing me turn away without a trace of hesitation, he finally panicked. After all these years together, it was the first time he had ever humbled himself to me. All right. This time, I was wrong. I apologize, okay? An apology in such an impatient tone? I shook my head. I had indulged him too much over the years, so much so that he seemed to have forgotten who he owed his current success to. Seeing I wasn't swayed, Ethan's spoiled temper flared. Audrey, who do you think you are? If I hadn't seen you had money back then, do you think I would have been with you? Leave me, and you're just a loser, a dead doormat. His arrogant demeanor suggested that allowing me to spend money on him was some great charity, but I no longer wanted to humbly beg for his love. The door closed behind me, shutting out Ethan's furious curses. It seemed he clearly understood that if I truly left, his life wouldn't be much better either. Over the years, Ethan's family resources, as well as the money he used to maintain his luxurious lifestyle, all came from my family. With the wedding ending so embarrassingly, my parents naturally wouldn't care about past sentiments anymore. Without my family's help, Ethan's family business plummeted again, and his financial standing naturally took a nosedive. Now, he could only rely on a job paying $4,000 or $5,000 a month. Logically speaking, maintaining a livelihood wasn't difficult. But having grown accustomed to lavish spending, how could he possibly accept a simple life? About half a month later, Ethan appeared in my office. His face was full of smiles. For a moment, I felt a strange disorientation, thinking everything that happened before was an illusion, as if we had returned to the days before Sophia came back from overseas. Ethan was carrying a shopping bag, containing a designer dress. Honey, the season's changing soon. I bought you a dress. I spent all afternoon at the mall picking it. Hurry and try it on. In the past, I would have joyfully taken it. But now, I had no desire to move. A hint of awkwardness flickered across Ethan's face. He proactively took out the dress, walked over, and was about to put it on me. Just try it on. I bought it in your size. I quickly stopped him and took the dress from his hand. Seeing his cautious demeanor, a faint trace of guilt actually welled up inside me. But when I saw the size on the dress, that trace of guilt vanished instantly, replaced by an endless chill. This size was 2 full sizes smaller than mine. It didn't look like my size, it was more like Sophia's. I instantly understood. His afternoon of shopping was just a date for the two of them, and they bought 2 outfits to placate me. This way, they could firmly tie down their benefactor. Why not? This dress isn't the right size. I casually tossed the dress back. Ethan froze, muttering to himself, impossible. Sophia clearly, as if realizing he had let something slip, he suddenly looked up at me. Audrey, listen to me. But I had no more patience to deal with him. Anything more would just be excuses and a waste of time. Ethan grew impatient. All this time, I had been the one trying to please him, always obedient to his every whim. Buying me a dress, in his eyes, was already the biggest concession he could make. Seeing my indifferent attitude, Ethan finally exploded, violently throwing the dress to the floor. Audrey, that's enough. I already apologized. What more do you want? I raised my eyes and said calmly, if you truly want to apologize, it's actually quite simple. Oh, really? Ethan's eyes lit up. Tell me, as long as you forgive me, whatever it is, I'll cut off all contact with Sophia, and never have any interaction with her again. Ethan froze. The words in his mouth died on his tongue. I sighed. I had known it would be like this all along. Checking the time, I asked him to leave. If there's nothing else, please excuse yourself. I have a meeting to attend, so I must ask to be excused. Ethan panicked, rushing forward and grabbing my arm. No, don't go. You promised me you'd protect me for life. You can't go back on your word. I looked into his eyes, my heart completely unmoved. You also promised me back then that you wouldn't have anything to do with Sophia again. Did you keep that promise? He froze, lowering his head, speechless. After a long moment, he picked up his bag and the dress, and silently left. Perhaps my stance was too firm, or perhaps he was too busy enjoying sweet moments with Sophia. Ethan didn't bother me for almost half a month. I finally got some much-needed peace and quiet. Although Ethan kept avoiding the divorce, I believed Sophia would be more anxious than me. I was happy, but someone else couldn't sleep. My mom called me almost every day, pressuring me to go on blind dates. My parents, at their age, just wanted to hold their grandchildren in their lifetime and enjoy the joys of family life at home. But unfortunately, my wedding fell through. The grandchildren they had almost had were gone. My mom was frantic. I couldn't put her off any longer, so I agreed to meet someone, just to get it over with. Sitting in the restaurant, I was uncharacteristically nervous, wondering how I would explain to my date that I was being forced to be there. Hello, bride-to-be, we meet again. A playful voice sounded behind me. I froze, then looked up. The man in front of me looked familiar, but he was wearing a sharp business suit, and his playful large eyes blinked. For a moment, I almost didn't recognize him. It's you? To reunite with an old acquaintance under such circumstances was utterly unexpected. Caleb? What are you doing here? He chuckled, covering his mouth repeatedly, and gracefully sat down across from me. Well, I was worried someone would be heartbroken after a breakup, and since my mom pushed your photo on me for a blind date, I figured I'd come and offer some comfo. RT. The blind date turned out to be my university deskmate. I hadn't quite recovered from the surprise when a hint of doubt quickly surfaced in my mind. How did you know about my wedding? Caleb showed a mysterious smile. Guess. I pondered for a moment, then shook my head. What a dummy. Caleb pouted, then pulled a ring from his bag. It was my wedding ring from that day. I froze. The figure before me slowly overlapped with the waitress's body from that day. You were the waitress? Bingo. Caleb snapped his fingers. But, why? I didn't understand. Caleb's family background was comparable to mine, so why would he work as a waitress? How to put it? Perhaps it was to make up for a regret from our university days. Caleb chuckled. But those meaningful words made my face flush slightly. Fortunately, Caleb didn't continue to tease me about that topic. We started talking about our university days. Back then, Caleb was nowhere near as gentle as he was now. He'd often threaten me with his fists at the slightest disagreement. I often complained back then, "You're so fierce and intimidating, who would dare marry you in the future?" He, however, didn't care at all. "If no one marries me, I'll just torment you for life. You're tough enough to take it anyway. Alright, I'll marry you, okay?" As we talked about the past, my mind raced with thoughts. Back then, my parents even wanted to arrange a betrothal for me with you, but who knew Ethan would snatch me away? Caleb smiled, a trace of unspoken thought in his eyes. I didn't respond. If it hadn't been for Ethan, perhaps we really would have had a chance to be together. But years had passed, and things were no longer the same. Plus, I had just gotten divorced. Who knew what Caleb would think? However, the next second, I heard him speak cautiously. "The reason I agreed to meet today is just to ask you one question." He looked at me, his eyes shining brightly. "Do your words about marrying me and back then still count?" It was as if lightning struck my mind, and my heart pounded violently, as if it would leap out of my throat any second. Audrey, what are you doing here?" Ethan appeared here for some unknown reason, storming over to me and cursing at Caleb, pointing at his nose. "Who is this jerk? I told you, why did you insist on divorcing me for no reason? So it was for this sleazeball. How am I worse than him? Our 5 years together, you just abandon it for a jerk like that?" The eyes of other customers in the cafe immediately focused on us. To outsiders, it probably looked like a scene where my spouse caught the other woman, and most of their gazes at me were filled with ridicule and disdain. I grew impatient with this crazy man and stood up to retort, "Have you no shame? We've already broken up. Can you please stop bothering me? And please don't forget, you were the one who first ran off to a hotel room with the other woman and even posted about it on social media, as if you were afraid no one would know. You are the real jerk here." Ethan was furious at my words, but had no way to retort, so he could only direct his anger at Caleb. "You look decent enough, can't you do anything but try to seduce my wife? Is that how your family raised you? How disgraceful." I hadn't wanted to involve Caleb, but I seemed to have forgotten that Caleb was notoriously fiery back then. He let out a cold chuckle, stood up, glanced at Ethan with disdain, and spoke with thin lips. "Firstly, my parents taught me to be a self-respecting person. On that note, I don't think you, as a man who cheated while married, have any right to question me, do you? Furthermore, your performance at the wedding, where you angrily rebuked my spouse for your true love, was the talk of the town. I truly don't understand how you still have the nerve to show your face. What? Can't you live without a woman?" Each sarcastic remark was like a nail, digging into Ethan's face. He trembled with rage, his finger pointing at Caleb continuously shaking. "Audrey, you actually let this jerk curse at me." I slapped his hand away and declared righteously, "First, you are not allowed to keep insulting my friend. Second, I don't want to hear my name come from your mouth. I find it repulsive." Seeing me defend Caleb so fiercely, Ethan could no longer act arrogant. He looked at me with bloodshot eyes, tears welling up continuously. He looked as pathetic as could be, as if I were the one who had cheated. I felt no sympathy, only nausea. It wasn't that I hadn't hoped he would look back at me once. He had dismissed me then, so why was he pretending to be deeply in love now, coming back to me? No one is obligated to wait indefinitely. Even the deepest love can be worn away by time. Sophia had walked to Ethan's side at some point. She seemed about to speak, but under my warning gaze, she wisely remained silent. I took Caleb's hand and turned to leave. Before we left, Ethan suddenly broke down behind me, yelling, "Audrey, can we still start over?" I paused, gave Caleb, whose expression was complex, a reassuring look, then turned to face Ethan directly. "There's no possibility, Ethan. A relationship that has soured is destined not to last. Since you made your choice, you must bear the consequences." Ethan collapsed to the ground, looking utterly despondent. After that day, Ethan agreed to the divorce. The moment I walked out of divorce office, I felt completely light. Facing Ethan's bloodshot eyes, I gave him just one glance, then took Caleb's hand and left. I didn't look back. And I wouldn't. Perhaps due to our mutual attraction, Caleb and I's relationship quickly warmed up. After all, having known each other for so many years, there was already some emotional foundation. Moreover, with our well-matched backgrounds, our family's elders were very much in favor of this marriage. When we talked about the childhood betrothal from back then, everyone could and stop smiling. Caleb and I quickly became a couple, spending all our time together, as if we had endless things to talk about. One day, I accompanied him shopping at the mall. In front of a counter, Caleb spotted a belt. As he was about to try it on, I heard a familiar voice nearby. What do you mean? Are you looking down on me? I have plenty of money. I turned my head and saw Ethan. He looked much more haggard, and his figure had become somewhat flabby. He was completely different from his former self, looking every bit like a middle-aged man. At that moment, he was standing at the counter, cursing at the sales associate, little Audrey, pointing at her nose. The sales associate, little Audrey, was looking embarrassed. Several times, she tried to explain, but Ethan's words cut her off. Sophia, beside him, quietly tried to dissuade him, likely out of embarrassment, but Ethan not only didn't rein himself in, he grew even more agitated. Why are you speaking for this jerk? Are you having an affair with her? Sophia gritted her teeth in anger. After muttering "you're crazy," she quickly left alone. Ethan didn't try to stop her, continuing to badger the sales associate, little Audrey. Especially after he noticed Caleb and me, his attitude became even more arrogant. This is a card my husband gave me. How could there be no money? I think you, sales associate, don't want your job anymore. Where's the manager? I want to complain. The sales associate, little Audrey, was almost in tears, holding up the card reader with a helpless expression. It really says insufficient balance. I can't just ignore a sale, can I? But Ethan clearly couldn't care less, continuing to argue incessantly. Caleb couldn't stand it anymore. As he worked in finance, he stepped forward, used an app to input the debit card number, and checked it. $13.14. Seeing the balance, Ethan was silenced. His face flushed, then paled, and he kept muttering, "How is that possible? How could there be no money?" Caleb pursed his lips and silently handed the card back. Just then, the jewelry store manager hurried over. After understanding the situation, she sarcastically remarked, "The issue of having no money isn't something our sales associates can resolve. I suggest you take that up with your bank." Ethan's face immediately turned crimson. He pointed at the manager, stammering for a long time, but still couldn't say anything. I couldn't be bothered to watch the show any longer. I pulled Caleb and prepared to leave. But we hadn't walked far when Ethan chased after us, extending his somewhat swollen right hand. On his ring finger, a ring was prominently displayed. The diamond on it looked to be about 10 carats at first glance. "Audrey, see? Sophia gave it to me." "Unlike you," Ethan paused, then glanced disdainfully at Caleb's bare ring finger, the sarcasm in his eyes intensifying. "You can't even afford a diamond ring. You're as stingy as ever." Caleb and I exchanged a glance, shaking our heads with a slight chuckle. Both our families were involved in the jewelry business. The diamond on Ethan's ring had no sparkle at all, and from the side, it looked as thin as paper. A genuine diamond would never have such poor quality. Unless, everything was left unsaid. Of course, I wouldn't open my mouth to point it out, because no matter what, he had nothing to do with me anymore. Seeing that neither of us spoke, Ethan became even more smug. He pulled a wedding invitation from his bag and forcefully handed it to me. "We're getting married next month. Since we know each other, remember to come and have a drink." I was about to refuse, but Caleb snatched it from my hand and accepted. "All right, I was just looking for a good feast. See you there." I could only nod helplessly. The smile on Ethan's face stiffened. Perhaps he initially just wanted to use this opportunity to annoy us, but he didn't expect Caleb to actually accept. But if he took the wedding invitation back, he would lose face. After hesitating for a moment, he snorted coldly and swayed away. After he left, I looked at Caleb, who was toying with the wedding invitation, and found myself between laughter and tears. "Are we really going?" "Yes." Caleb wrinkled his cute little nose, revealing a pair of small canine teeth. "Of course we have to go. How else can we witness this golden girl and boy? It's golden couple." On the day of the wedding, Caleb and I arrived on time. Looking at the old mill banquet hall before me, my first thought was that I had come to the wrong place. If it weren't for their wedding photos displayed at the entrance, I would have just left. I had no idea how Sophia convinced Ethan to give up a lavish ceremony. You know, when I was going to marry him, just the wedding reception and venue decorations cost nearly $300,000. Thinking about it, I actually felt a bit of admiration for Sophia. Once inside, I couldn't help but sigh again. Sophia, impressive. Setting aside the pervasive smell of animal waste, just the yellowish peeling paint on the walls and the somewhat moldy tables were enough to kill anyone's appetite. As soon as Caleb sat down, he pulled out a tissue and fastidiously wiped the table in front of him. Seeing the tissue turn greenish, his brows furrowed even deeper, and he gave me a wry smile. "I wish I hadn't come. I don't know why they'd pick a place like this." The stuff here might be older than Grandpa Arthur. I couldn't help but cover my mouth and laugh out loud. That guy always had a knack for dark humor. Seeing this, other guests nearby quickly pulled out tissues and wiped their own tables, afraid of eating something unclean during the meal. Soon, an MC with slicked back hair walked onto the stage and began to host with great enthusiasm. All that talk of a match made in heaven, filled with mutual affection. In short, he said whatever sounded good. But their scandalous affairs were already the talk of the town at the time. The audience was full of relatives, who were well aware of everything. At the MC's lengthy speech, everyone had a strange expression on their face. Ethan's family and relatives lowered their heads even further, their faces full of embarrassment. I shook my head. The so-called wedding was nothing more than a cover-up for their illicit affair. This extremely shabby wedding also confirmed Caleb's and my initial suspicions. Sophia didn't love Ethan at all, and she clearly wasn't willing to spend money on him. Soon, the bride and groom made their entrance. Ethan, wearing an ill-fitting suit, slowly entered, surrounded by relatives. With every step he took, the stage beneath his feet groaned under the strain. I even worried if he might fall right through it later. Was this the love he was willing to abandon his dignity and pride for? I didn't understand. The only striking thing in the entire venue was perhaps the suit he was wearing, which shimmered like silk under the lights. Ethan held his head high and puffed out his chest, and after spotting Caleb and me at the back of the crowd, his arrogance intensified. Like a victorious rooster. But just then, an accident occurred. Just as he was about to reach the center of the stage, the suit's trailing fabric seemed to catch on something. With a ripping sound, the suit instantly tore into several pieces, falling off in front of everyone. It was patched together? Ethan was stunned, and frantically scolded the groomsman next to him. What are you just standing there for? Go fix it. Today is my wedding. Nothing can go wrong. The groomsman nearby probably also knew about their scandalous affairs, and when he heard the word wedding, he rolled his eyes in disdain. Pfft. Some wedding. A worthless piece of trash who thinks he's a kept man. You scumbag. Ethan's face instantly went pale, his lips trembling, as if he wanted to say something. But the disdainful gazes from the audience made him panic, and he could only frantically call out Sophia's name. Wife, what are you doing? Sophia. Someone's bullying your husband. Sophia went on stage with a dark expression, pulled out a red envelope and handed it to the groomsman, which finally calmed the situation. But the wedding was already ruined. Everyone knew it deep down. Yet Ethan clearly didn't think so. Amidst the noise of the cheap sound system, he walked up to Sophia, tears in his eyes. Finally able to marry his childhood sweetheart, he must have been extremely happy at that moment. After all, he was about to become her legitimate husband. Just as the couple was about to exchange rings, the main door of the wedding venue was kicked open. The loud noise made everyone present turn their heads. The two on stage were naturally no exception. Standing at the entrance was a pale-faced, heavy Frank, holding the hand of a child who looked about 3 years old. After seeing who it was, Sophia's face instantly changed. You, what are you doing here? Before the man could speak, the child spoke first. Mommy, where did you go? Leo missed you so much. Crying, he staggered towards Sophia. At this, Ethan, who was nearby, broke down, immediately stepping in front of Sophia and scolding the charging child. Where did this bastard come from, blabbering nonsense? Frank was instantly displeased, and his gaze at Ethan was like venom. You're the bastard. This is Sophia's and my child. I wondered why she suddenly disappeared after she went bankrupt. Turns out she was shacked up with a scoundrel like you. We have a marriage certificate. You're committing bigamy. I gasped. This is a lot to take in. Ethan, realizing what was happening, glared fiercely at Sophia. What's going on? Didn't you tell me you came back for me? Sophia probably hadn't expected things to escalate to this point, lowering her head and avoiding Ethan's gaze. This evasive attitude infuriated Ethan even more, and he grabbed Sophia's collar. Roar. I paid for everything you've eaten and where you've stayed these past few days, and you actually lied to me, you shameless fraud. With that, he slashed Sophia's face, leaving bleeding marks. Now Sophia was also furious, pointing at Ethan's nose and yelling, Who do you think you are? You were sleeping with me while you were still with Audrey. The two of them had now completely ripped each other apart. Ethan shrieked and lunged at her. The two of them began to fight. What was supposed to be a wedding had turned into a farce of them exposing each other's secrets. I pulled Caleb back towards the exit. Watching the two of them fighting like cats and dogs on stage, I didn't feel much satisfaction, only pity. Perhaps their relationship was no longer as strong as it once was, and too many other factors had interfered during the years they were apart. After all, how strong could a love built on immorality be? When I saw Ethan again, it was 5 years later. Looking at the weathered face before me, I couldn't help but feel shocked. Ethan? Hearing his name, Ethan, dressed in a work uniform, looked up, but after seeing me, he quickly lowered his head. No, I'm not him. You've got the wrong person. His once handsome face was gone, replaced by deep lines of age. Though we were the same age, he looked as if he had aged over a decade. He smelled of laundry detergent, and his once delicate hands were now full of wrinkles and scars. Looking at him in this state, I was at a loss for words. Just then, his cell phone rang. Why aren't you home making dinner after work, you wretch? Do you want to starve me to death? Ethan meekly agreed. He hung up the phone, and tears streamed down his face. It was clear that his married life was not happy. Just then, Caleb suddenly stepped forward and slipped a few $100s into his hand. Take it. Ethan froze and looked up at Caleb blankly. Lily, who was next to us, looked at us curiously. Mom and Dad, who is this man? Ethan aired his head, looking at my daughter Lily, and let out a bitter laugh. This child is truly beautiful, so much like her mother. Thank you, sir. I smiled, and taking Caleb's hand and Lily's hand, turned and left. Seeing Ethan again didn't stir many emotions within me. My life now was very happy. Even when I spoke of the past, I treated it only as a light-hearted anecdote for after-dinner conversation. It was also thanks to that incident back then that I made up my mind to leave Ethan. Otherwise, how would I have met Caleb? And I wouldn't have this happy family now. Perhaps we were on the same wavelength. Caleb and I turned our heads to look at each other simultaneously, and then smiled faintly. May the rest of our lives be like this, and that would be enough.